Om. 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 Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Namaste all, good evening and welcome to the session this evening. My name is Natarajan and I will be your moderator for this evening. Today is the closing day of the first ever Singapore Festival of Hinduism that was held from the 20th to 29th November, and today is our last day. It was organized by Hindu Center Singapore with a number of partners those who have been watching will know the past events. We had 23 events over 10 days, and the festival's objective was to inform, educate, and entertain all Singaporeans to learn more about Hinduism. The festival is also positioned as an interfaith event to promote a better knowledge and appreciation of Hinduism, as a religion is insufficiently understood despite being one of the major religions in the world. We had a number of events over the past 10 days, and I would recommend that for those of you who have missed any of these, please go to Hindu Center's YouTube or Facebook page, or you can also go to Hindu Center's website and look for the links. Today's finale session is Ask Me Anything on Hinduism. So keep your questions coming. What is Ask Me Anything on Hinduism? It has been planned as an open forum for any kind of questions you, the audience, may have on Hinduism, its tenets, its practices, its festivals, rituals, whatever you may think of. We are fortunate to have with us today an eminent panel of knowledgeable local Hindus. We hope all of you watching us online will make use of this unique opportunity today to clear your questions about the religion and add flavor to our discussion. For those of you who have sent in many questions to us earlier, I thank you. Questions can continue to be posted via the comment boxes in Facebook and YouTube. Please mention your name too. This session gets exciting, useful, and enriching as more of you participate and engage with the panel. So please get ready. Let me start by introducing our panelists for this evening. I will do short introductions in the interest of time, but you can learn more about all of them by going to the festival website at sfh.sg. Let me start with Mr. Ravenderan, known as Ravi at Hindu Center. Ravi has been an ardent student of Hinduism for over 3 decades, and he's been teaching Hinduism in various Indian and Hindu organizations. He has been a speaker and facilitator at IRO's Interfaith Dialogues. He's also a writer of Hindu articles in various Hindu Center publications. He has trained Hindu counselors for deployment in Singapore prisons as religious counselors. He's also served as vice president and remains a current volunteer teacher at the Hindu Center. Thank you for being here, Ravi, today. Next, we have Anand Chandrasekar. Anandji volunteers his time with multiple Hindu organizations, the Hindu Endowment Board, the Singapore Dakshina Bharata Brahmana Sabha, and the Chinmaya Mission, to name a few. He conducts youth and adult classes on Hinduism and the Bhagavad Gita. Professionally, he is a researcher and facilitator of leadership development programs. Thank you for being here, Anand. Soundharya is also a volunteer with the Hindu Center. She has a keen interest in learning and sharing knowledge about Hinduism. She has been a trainer for Hindu marriage preparation programs. She is also a regular speaker on topics related to Hinduism in Singapore. She currently works as a change analyst in a multinational bank. Thank you, dear panelists, for being with us today. So let me dive straight into the Q&A now. Here we go. Let me start off with this one. Living in a world of globalization and a borderless world today, to what extent is religion relevant? How can youth stay in the Hinduism? This is something which is very, very current, and I think it comes up in many discussions. What do you want me to repeat the question, panelists? Who would like to take it? I leave it open.
Yeah, I shall take the question. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Ravi.
Yeah. Living in a world of globalization and a borderless world, to what extent is religion relevant? How can youths stay in the Hindu fold? A very interesting question and a good question to start off our session. Essentially, the question is about the relevance of religion. Why do we need religion today in this globalized, borderless world? What is the relevance of religion? Can we do without religion? And particularly in the case of youth, since the question pertains to youth, it's all in the hands of, youths are energetic, you've got a plan, once our education is over, we can get married if we choose to, or remain single, whatever. We've got a career, the career has got a career path. It's all entirely dependent on our self-effort, right? We put in our best effort and things work out, right? And we, at some point, we'll see our career progress, we'll get the things we want, we earn our salary, and we lead a happy life. So why do you need God? What is the role for God, religion, practices, temple, worship? Why do you need all this? Right? What is the role of all this in this modern world, in this globalized world? There's probably, I'm just exaggerating a bit, but that's probably an extension of that question. The point I would like to make is this. We all make plans with regard to family, children, career, jobs, promotion, job targets, and a host of other things, what we plan to buy, and things like that. The question is, do things go according to plan? Do things go according to plan? We can put in the best effort. We can have the best plans. We can have 100% commitment. We can have all, if you're working in a team, you can have the team members all on board. Everybody puts in the best effort, the people around you, because I've got the best people assembled. But do things always happen? There always seems to be this unknown factor that shapes outcomes. Sometimes it shapes in a favorable way. Sometimes it shapes in an unfavorable way. Sometimes it doesn't interfere at all. Then things go as planned, of course, and we're all very happy. But we know the reality is it's never the case where 100% of the time things go as planned. There is always this unknown element that comes in and influences the outcomes, such that the outcomes sometimes can be worse, sometimes can be better, sometimes it can be totally unanticipated, something that it did not expect. So this is where the question arises as to what can we do about this unknown element? Can we shape it in a way that makes it favorable to us? And this is where we, in Hinduism, we bring in the concept of a God-centered life. Let me share the screen. It is part of the Hindu worldview a God-centered life, a life wherein I live according to the dictates of what the Hindu Shastras say. And the promise of the Shastras is that such a life will lead to a life of two things are promised there. One is what they call as Sukha Praptihi. You get happiness. And the other is what they say as Dukkha Nivrittihi. That means avoidance of sorrow. So this is what the Hindu Shastras prescribe. And who revealed the Shastras? The Shastras were revealed by God. So herein lies the relevance of religion, of scriptures, and the whole works of it. So the short answer, the relevance of religion, it will simply be that the relevance of religion is to shape this unknown factor such that things work out in my favor. But if I go into religion, does it mean that things will always work out in my favor? It may not. But even in those situations when it does not work out in my favor, religion enables you to, religion gives you the strength to be able to handle that unfavorable outcomes. This is the value add of religion. So by going into religion, I do not lose in any way. The value of religion is that the outcomes will either be favorable to you, or even if it's not favorable, you will have the strength, the ability, the maturity to be able to cope with that unfavorable outcome, accept it, move on, such that that life of happiness and life of attaining happiness and avoidance of sorrow is continuously perpetuated. Anand and Soundharya, anything to add on to that?
I totally agree. And just to add on, in particular, they talk about how we're living in a globalized, borderless world. I think it's even more relevant because we are globalized and, our Hindu prayer, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, we embrace the world. So the need for tolerance, the need for brotherhood, when Swami Vivekananda went to give his address, that's what struck the world about Hinduism, because we bring everyone under one fold. And now is when religion is very relevant, especially to the youth, because no one expected 2020 to pan out the way it did with COVID and lockdown. We live in a world of uncertainties. And like what Raviji said, when you cannot control the outcomes, that is when I think religion becomes even more relevant, because we are living in an uncertain world.
Thank you, Ravi and Soundharya. When both of you talked about how, it is how important in today's world and in the COVID world, and where there are difficulties in controlling the outcome, that actually takes us to the next one, which basically is about, then how do I know that there's God? How do I know that there is God? You're saying it is still relevant, but how do I know there is God, and why there is a need to depend on Him? Isn't personal effort good enough? Can't we control everything?
That's a very interesting.
Think?
That's a very interesting question which has come, and I think it closely relates to what Raviji just spoke about. As long as things are going on an even keel, as long as things are going the way we like it, we don't see any need for anything external. We don't see, any issues. We ask, why should that be anything else? But it is when things do not go the way we intend them to go, that we start thinking about why did it not go, what can be done, and so on. I want to take the point which Raviji spoke about and talked about, saying, there are certain unknowns. In our Hinduism, we talk of 3 types of barriers which can be there. And one barrier we talk about is what is called adhyatmic, or barriers within oneself. And then there is adi bhautik, barriers due to the environment. And then there is adi daivik, barriers which are, we call them macro causes. Let me quickly illustrate with an example. Let's say someone needs to catch a flight. You're going from Jurong all the way to Changi. You're crossing the island and you're going. There are all of these 3 factors which can come into play. First, on your own end, you will need to leave on time. You will need to make a selection of which route to use. Are you going to take a bus? Are you going to take a train? Are you going to take a cab? Are you going to get a ride from a friend? So these are decisions which you make which are under your control. You got to wake up on time. So there's a lot of these things which go on within your control. Then there is certain things which are environmental, which to some extent you can work around. That is traffic. That is wet weather. It's raining, so it's probably going to take you more than what you planned for things to happen. You can work around it. You can take a different route. You can probably leave a little bit ahead and so on. And then there is Adi Devik. There are macro causes which can prevent you. We have seen that happen in recent times. In 2020, we have seen circuit breaker measures come in. It was not under any of our hands. You couldn't leave the confines of your house except for essential things. So suddenly we realize there are things which, how much ever we plan, the self-effort only goes so much. There are certain factors also to which we have to adjust. So what the idea of God is basically to say that there are certain unknown factors, and how can we obtain the resilience in order to overcome and address those factors which are not under our control. It is not the idea of someone out there who is there controlling your movement every day and life, when you sneeze, when you get up, when you go to sleep. That's not the idea we are talking about. It's not that there is a God out there who's doing favors for one person and being unfavorable to another person. The idea in Hinduism is that the grace of God comes through in the form of giving you the confidence, giving each individual the confidence and the ability to be resilient to whatever circumstances throws out at us. So self-effort is great. It is important, but equally important is our ability to also address what the circumstance throws at us. So that is what we talk about when we say self-effort can go so much, and there is also a grace of God which is necessary. Now, let me quickly take a couple of minutes to address the first question. How can I know that there is God? Our Shastras offer various pramanas or various ways of saying, establishing the existence of God. Some of them are, there is something called Pratyaksha Pramana. Basically, I see and I believe. So we have saints, we have people, even in contemporary times, who have said, I have seen the form of God. There is a divine force and I have seen it. So that is one way of knowing. There is Anumana, there is inference. We infer certain things from other things. There is a world, there is a creation around us, so there is a creator. So, we call that God. So there are various ways in which our Shastras, there are 6 different pramanas illustrated in our Shastras: Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Arthapatti, Anupalabdhi, Shabda. So Shabda Pramana is again taken as very important, meaning the testimony of learned people, reliable experts. The Vedas, in our case, tell us that there is God, and therefore we take that as proof for the existence of God. So I hope that addresses some of the questions. Raviji, Soundharya, please feel free to add on.
To add on to Anandji's point about Shabda Pramana and Shastra. So yes, Shabda Pramana, Shastra, experiences of great saints, these are all proof of the existence of God. I would just like to add one small point, add on to that point. If one were to question whether God exists, then one needs to just look around yourself and look at nature. Look at the timely arrival of rain. Look at how seasons bring about winter, how seasons happen: summer, winter, autumn, spring, birds' migration, planets' movement. Planets move with such clockwork precision. There is so much of this order in this universe. If there is order and non-randomness, then how did this come about? There has to be some intelligence that has put an order into place. Order doesn't come about by itself. There has to be an intelligence. The order presupposes a intelligence that exists. And this intelligence, the Hindu Shastras, the scriptures, and the holy men of Hinduism call it God.
Thank you, Ravi and Anand. As we actually talked about, yes, religion is still relevant now, and then there are lots of things that are beyond your control. And how can you see him? In what ways can you see him? Like what Ravi said, every day. But among the youth, there is this question that, okay, now there is God and there is a need to practice religion, but they are being asked, like, where we look up to values and things like that. We had a chat about Ramayana and the values that Rama actually personifies. But there are people who ask the question, some Hindu gods seem to have two, and in some cases, multiple, consorts, wives, as in Lord Krishna. It seems hard to accept these in Hinduism. On one hand, we have Rama, and the other hand, there are questions like this. I think also Muruga has brought up. I would appreciate if one of you is able to explain this.
Okay, I'll take this question.
Sure.
Because I think, the thing about our Puranas is that we have made it very story-like. We have made gods very relatable characters. But I guess to some extent, when imposing human features and attributes on God, we sort of took the freedom a little too much. So thanks to our Tamil movies and Thiruvilayadal and all the movies where, there were human emotions imposed on God. Saraswati Sabadam, it's as if the Devis are fighting for supremacy. And that's a very human way to look at gods, because first we must understand that they are gods. They are formless, genderless. We've given them forms. We've given them Puranic stories to derive a value, a moral out of it. So to say that Murugan was married is just a way of human way of interpreting. So where is the problem? Why is it that it's hard to accept these features? Because we have to go a bit deeper. There's a layer beneath it, which is the philosophy. So when we see Lord Murugan, and we are talking on an auspicious day, the Kartigai Deepam day, and as we are talking, I think it's important to understand that Murugan his veil is a perfect symbolism of jnana, knowledge. And if you see the two Shaktis he has with him, it is Icha Shakti, which is Valli, and Kriya Shakti, which is Devane. So his two consorts in double quotes, his two wives in double quotes are not married to him, because remember, he's God. So they are two Shaktis, which in an iconography, when we represent Murugan, we have to put these two Shaktis together. And Hinduism, I feel very proud to be a female Hindu, because Shaktis are feminine. It's the Parvati who powers Lord Shiva. It is Saraswati who powers Brahma. It is Lakshmi who powers Vishnu. So Shaktis are always feminine. So when we have to give a representation of Icha Shakti and Kriya Shakti, the representation is Valli and Devane. There's another reason why we have two Shaktis with him. One, Devane, is the representation of the godly, the heavenly wife that he took, wife in quotes. The other Shakti is the worldly wife he took. So this is to say that Lord Muruga is a god of the heavens, is a god of the earth, is the Kali Yuga Devam. So therefore, he has both with him, of course, his jnana. And if you look at a very philosophical representation, right, Icha Shakti is the power of desire. So whenever we want to do something, whenever we have a desire, we need knowledge. So that's his veil, his jnana. And with knowledge, you will be able to do kriya, which is the symbolism of Devane. So that's the order. So when you desire something, you need the knowledge to get it done. So it's not that he's married to two wives, and that's not an excuse for men to go out and marry twice. It's illegal. But yeah, again, coming back to Krishna, he did not marry the 16,000 gopis. Once again, he's God. He had the ability to clone himself into 16,000 forms so that he can appease the 16,000 women who are hankering after his love. So that is the power of his compassion. This is not to say that, he took many wives, but it is to say that when 16,000 women who were saved from Narakasura, they say that no one will marry us. Can you show us your love? He cloned himself to 16,000 different forms. So that's why we have this interpretation. So before even we use these terms very loosely, or share these stories with our children, I think we have to understand, we have to give the significance behind it. So yeah, that would be my answer to this question.
Would Ravi and Anand like to add anything to this?
No.
Oh, you're good. Okay.
You answered very well.
Okay.
I learned something from listening to her. ideas of Icha Shakti and Kriya Shakti.
Yeah, the Shakti was actually quite passionate about what she wanted to say. Anyway, on that vein, after, okay, there is religion now, and then there is God, and we see him, and, now don't question about all his wives. Here is your answer, why it is that way. So now there is this interesting thing about prayers. There is a question here on prayers and chants, which has just come in. And we the festival had a session on prayers and chants, one of the sessions conducted by our own Sada from Hindu Center. But this person would like to know, while chanting prayers and mantras, is pronunciation of mantras, doing them accurately, so important? So while chanting prayers, is pronunciation of the mantras with accuracy so important? How do we do that? If so, please, Anandji, would you like to take this?
Sure. It's a very interesting question, and it's a very commonly asked question. So thank you whoever asked the question. Thank you for asking this question in order to clarify your thoughts on it. Let's consider what we would do, for a student who is in school. We teach them proper pronunciation, whether it is English, whether it's Chinese, Malay, Tamil. When we teach a language, one of the things we teach them is the proper pronunciation. A very similar thing for mantras also. Mantras have a particular power to it. And when we are chanting a mantra, we are invoking that particular power. So yes, there is a necessity to pronounce it in the proper way in which it is pronounced. In the series, in the video that we had on chanting of mantras, there were various parts of the mantra which were pointed out, how forcefully it should be pronounced, what is the gap between two chants, two words, how does the joining of the words do, how do they need to be pronounced. So all of that, yes, it is important. So what we are required to do is to chant it to the maximum possible extent in the right way. But we are all human. And we are bound to make mistakes. So when we chant, sometimes we might make an improper pause. Just the slip of the tongue, we might mispronounce something. We might pause at the wrong place. We might want to pause and swallow at a different place than what is recommended. So what we typically do is at the end of the prayers, we also have something called Shamapana, where we say, there are things, yes, I know that this is supposed to be performed this way, this is supposed to be chanted this way, but because of the human nature, I might land up making mistakes. I'm sure I have made some mistakes. Mantrahinam, kriyahinam. In the chanting of mantras, in the performance of the way it is to be performed, I might have made some mistakes. These are unintentional, so please forgive me. We do ask for that forgiveness also. But asking for the forgiveness is not a license to not learn to chant it properly. So the idea is we take our efforts as much as possible to learn the pronunciation properly. And if there are unintended lapses, we ask for Kshama or we ask for forgiveness.
Thank you. That explains very well. I mean, I think probably some audience would have misunderstood that, this is the way to pronounce certain things, and the fear might have come out of, what happens when you do anything wrong. But I think there is always this, like you said, the Shama mantra, which some may not know, and it's a good point that you raised today. We would be momentarily lost Soundharya. I think we will go to the next question, if you're all right. Okay, here we go. So we talked about prayers, and then now we talk about one question on the yamas. So what has come up with this? Ahimsa is a top yama in our scriptures, and yet it seems to be set aside when in the way of Dharma in Ramayana and Mahabharata. Now, why is Ahimsa considered a value when the argument by Krishna is that Arjuna is not killing the Atma, only the body? Vijay,
Yeah.
would you like to take this on?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Ahimsa. The definition of ahimsa needs to be clear. Ahimsa means, according to scriptures, non-violence. But the license there is that the violence must be wielded for a valid reason. In other words, what it says is ahimsa does not mean it's that Hindus should become doormats and lie down and let everyone roll over. That's not the value of ahimsa. Hinduism allows for himsa, it allows for violence, but that violence must have a valid reason. So what do I mean by valid reason? Valid reason means a reason that's aligned with dharma, duties. Example, if a soldier were to pick up a rifle and shoot someone, he's doing it and shoot not someone, shoot the enemy in a war, then he's fulfilling his duty as a soldier. There, violence, himsa, is permitted. So ahimsa means you should not resort to violence without a valid reason. So this, we must understand the context of ahimsa very clearly. Ahimsa means non-violence without a valid reason. So if you have a valid reason, such as the execution of your duties, you can and you should resort to violence. Okay, so that's the backdrop. So coming back to the question then, it appears to be set aside in the Dharma and Ramayana. So I'm not sure about the assumption, where that assumption came from, because Ramayana is all about Dharma. And the Dharma of a warrior is to wield violence when required and non-violence at other times. So there is no compromise whatsoever. Rama is the embodiment of Dharma, and Rama teaches Dharma via the Ramayana. We learn Dharma via the Ramayana, including the value of Ahimsa. So I'm not sure where, maybe you need a bit more clarity on what do you mean by Ahimsa is set aside in the Dharma. So if we are saying that because there's a lot of wars and fighting in Ramayana and Mahabharata, does it mean that we are setting aside Ahimsa? The answer is no. Because in the wars in Ramayana and Mahabharata, there are people who are fulfilling their duties as soldiers, as warriors, as kings, to protect the people, to protect their family, kith and kin. So there, in the discharge of their duties, they are using violence. So that cannot be said to be putting aside of ahimsa. Okay, so so I hope that clarifies on the part about ahimsa being marginalized in Ramayana and Mahabharata. It is not. Okay. The second part is, why is ahimsa considered a value when the argument by Krishna is that Arjuna is not killing the Atma, only the body? Okay. In chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses two arguments to goad Arjuna into fighting. What is mentioned here is only the second one, where they say that, where he tells Arjuna that by killing Bhishma and Drona, you are not killing the you're not killing the Atma, you're only killing the physical body. That is one argument that Krishna uses to Arjuna to say that actually by killing the physical body, only killing the physical body, the soul continues to live. Vasamsi Jirnani, he goes on to say that it continues to reincarnate. So actually there is no real killing per se. That is one argument that Krishna uses with Arjuna in chapter 2. There is one other argument that he also uses, and that pertains to my first point about duties. He does tell Arjuna that your job as a Kshatriya is to fight. And fighting means killing. Killing means using violence. See, and that is dharmic. So again, the ahimsa is not put aside. So in summary, the answer to this question would be to look at the definition of ahimsa very carefully. And in the discharge of duties, sometimes violence is required as part of the duty. It comes with the landscape. Okay.
Thank you, Ravi. I think the war is what probably set the justification for the war, so to speak. is what triggered that question. Would Anand or Soundharya like to take this any further, or shall I move to the next one?
So I can
There is actually
offer one thing.
Yeah.
So just to build on what Raviji said, it is important to note that in Mahabharata, war was not the first resort. When the Pandavas ask after their exile, they ask of Duryodhana, they say, give us back half the kingdom that belongs to us. He says, no. Then, okay, give us 5 cities. No. Give us 5 villages. No. Give us 5 houses. No, I will not even give you a needle point of land. It is then to reclaim one's own right that war becomes a tool which is inevitable. So it is only after all other options are exhausted that this comes into fate. Until that point, the idea of ahimsa still holds. And even in the war, again, no, it is conducted in a dharmic manner. So the idea of ahimsa would still hold that.
Okay. There is a follow-up to your mantras, Anandji. One short question, which we will take it before we move on to the next one, which is, they're asking about how do mantras help in healing? We talked about Shama mantra and other mantras. How does it help in healing? So basically, the power to heal. Do you have something to share on that?
I'll be very brief with this because mantra, the etymology is mananat trayate iti mantra. That which because of constant remembrance protects you. Trayate, protects you. So these mantras are sounds. See, typically when we chant a mantra, one of the things, I'll answer this on 2 levels. One of the things which happens is there is a level of concentration which occurs when we chant the mantra. When you are repeatedly chanting something, it brings your concentration to what you're doing at that point in time. It keeps you away from a lot of other thoughts. One of the ways when you're faced with difficult circumstances is to concentrate on something which is positive and keep things away which are negative. So just the act of repeating it in a way brings positivity because it excludes other things. So that's one way it helps in healing. Then the mantra itself, by the sounds, has certain healing powers. Now, this has been passed on, experienced by our rishis, experienced by great masters, and it has been passed on. How it works is in each person's experience. The more you do it, sound waves we know have certain experiences. They have certain effects on it. We know that when positive sound waves are imbibed into water, there are positive structures which come in water. There are beautiful structures which come in water. When negative thoughts are given to water, when negative words are given to water, then research has shown us that the structure of water tends to not be very clear. So we know that there is evidence. We have seen both scientific evidence and experiential evidence of this. So these are ways in which mantras help in healing.
Thank you, Anand. So while we are on the topic of generating positive experiences and then increasing that energy, and how do we benefit from all of these? So this whole concept of karma comes in. I think no Ask Me session can go without questions on dharma and karma. So here is what we have. So there's a question when good or bad things happen, and it's so relevant in these COVID times, which you spoke about earlier too. So do we give an excuse? Is karma an excuse? Is past birth? We talk about it. So the question is, are we giving an excuse that it's because of past karma? Is that what we are learning from the religion? So how do we explain that? And what is the focus of where about things that we don't have control over, or all of these happenings that we see around them? I think that would be very apt in today's times. Please, Raviji.
So I'm just sharing the slide here. So when good or bad things happen to people, are we giving an excuse that is because of his past karma? It is not an excuse, but the law of karma is just like the law of gravity or any other physical laws that we know. So how does a Hindu utilize this law of karma that is enshrined in our scriptures? The first step is that it gives us acceptance, because a lot of times when bad things happen, the question always is, why me? You know? So it gives the cause effect reasoning to the individual with regard to the unfortunate event or unforeseeable outcome that has happened to him. The whole idea there is not to stop there. The purpose of law of karma is to then what? What next then? That is where we have this concept of the agami karma, where I can shape my actions according to the dharma. And that's why if I refer you to the chart here, you can see if my actions are in line with dharma, it is going to earn merits. In Sanskritam, what in Hinduism, what we refer to as merits is called punya. This punya will fructify to us as comfortable situations. It will come back to us as comfortable situations, and this is where we enjoy things. Conversely, if our action is not being in line with dharma, it will produce what is called papa. And papa will fructify, come back to us as uncomfortable situations. This thing can happen within a life. This fructification of merits into comfortable and demerits into uncomfortable situations can happen within one lifetime, or can happen over multiple lifetimes. So, which goes to the second question then. If something is happening as a result of my bad deeds, my adharmic deeds in a previous life, then how can I be held responsible for suffering? So that's the second question. Okay, I'll come to the second question later. Let me handle the first question first. So, knowing the law of karma, what is a Hindu is expected to do is to realize the value of dharma. To know that dharma, even though I may be on the right side of the law, there is this law of karma in operation. And therefore, it's very important that whatever activities that I'm doing are aligned with dharma. And dharma is found in the Shastras. And the more I live in line with dharma, the more I'm going to have a comfortable life. This is with regard to the comfortable situations. This is with regard to the law of karma. Which then goes on to the second question. Can a person be held responsible for the suffering or resolving them in the current life? You have to understand, law of karma is not a law of retribution. Why these uncomfortable situations and comfortable situations come to us is because it's for the soul to grow as a result of these experiences. God does not gain anything from us suffering as a result of a non-dharmic actions. Remember that very carefully. Because at first glance, the law of karma seems to be a law of retribution. That means you do good things, you get gratification. You do bad things, you're punished. It's like almost like how the law operates in society. But the law of karma, which is been put in place by God, is very different. It is not meant, it's not a law to punish people. It's not punitive. The whole reason why one encounters uncomfortable situations in adharmic situations is to let the person understand that these situations are to help him grow in the sense of growing more closer towards dharma and closer towards God. So that is the whole idea why we have this law of karma, which has been put in place by God.
Thank you, Ravi. Staying on the karma, there is another interesting question, and which is one of this has created a lot of discussion in Bollywood lately. So the question goes, what is Hinduism's view on suicides? You know, what happens if one to the soul if one commits suicide, and what has it got to do with this karma? So the question is, okay, we know about the karmas now, but what is Hinduism's view on suicide, and what does it have to do with one's karma? It's quite relevant today, given this very big case in India after the Bollywood suicide in June. So I think quite apt, the question, but it is something that a lot of people, who have these kind of intentions to take their own lives need to know.
The scriptures are very clear, in that the scriptures are very unambiguous with regard to suicide. Suicide is the taking away of a life without a valid reason, you see, and therefore it goes against the grain of what Shastras are saying, and therefore naturally one will incur papa as a result of that. That there is no ambiguity on that part, and really there's no excuse. So when somebody is in a situation where one is feels like committing suicide or driven towards that idea of committing suicide, what should one do? This is where religion comes to your rescue. Lead a God-centered life, understand the dharma, do the bhakti, the worship, grow closer to God, make God a co-traveler, make God a co-partner in your life, because most of the time people are driven to suicide for what? Because the people around them are not supporting them, they're not giving them the things they need to know or have or come to hear, So where you need an anchor. Most of the time people are driven to suicides are people who don't have an anchor. Where are you going to get the anchor? This is where God comes in, and that God is the ultimate anchor, and that is where one should lean towards when it comes to suicide. But is suicide an option? The answer is no.
Okay, let me just add on something to that. Yeah, so definitely, in like what Raviji had showed, whether it's in the cause of Dharma or against the Dharma, it is definitely not in the cause of Dharma when you decide to take your own life. Because remember, this human birth, in Tamil, Avayar says, aridu manidarai pirattal aridu. It is, we've come through so many births, we have evolved, and we've taken this human birth. Whatever be the challenge, whatever be the circumstances, to take away one's own life is not what God wants. To even put it very clearly, we have an episode in the life of Saint Arunagirinathar. And Arunagirinathar is the saint who wrote Tiruppugal. And before he wrote Tiruppugal, there's this very interesting episode where, due to the circumstances in his life, he's driven to a point where he wants to take away his life. So he climbs Tiruvannamalai temple, and we're talking about it today. He jumps off the Gopuram, and Lord Muruga actually carries him, saves him. And when he saves, he doesn't stop there. There's a bit of conversation. He gives him a lot of advice, and then he starts composing Tiruppugal. But he says, when you commit suicide, the soul never gets a human birth again. So don't commit suicide. This is the word of Lord Murugan, the advice that was given to Arunagirinathar. So I think it is very clear from a religious standpoint that we should not take that course of action. It is adharmic. The soul will not take a human birth after one commits suicide.
Okay. That's great. I mean, we have example of Arunagirinathar. Really, I know that's your strength is that, and thank you for enlightening me. I had a chance to view the video that you shared. I was just that's piece of news I did not know myself. That's really great. Okay, now while we are on the topic of what is acceptable, you're facing things because of karma. How do we control things? Is our past birth influencing? So what is next accepted is an interesting question. Now, what is the religion's view on, the liberalist LGBTQ agenda? What are our thoughts? Do we have a point of view? And if so, what it is? I mean, the question itself is asked because we do have a liberalist agenda, and Hinduism is more, is known for its ideals in that such in a sense. So when it comes to accepting, these views, what does the religion have to say? Is it written somewhere, or is it just, something that people have their own views on? I'd appreciate if the panelists could enlighten us on that. Anand ji?
Yes, I'm happy to answer this very briefly. So, in the Hindu way of life, we divide our life into 4 stages. Brahmacharya, where you are basically a student, you're concentrating on learning. Then there is Grihastha, a householder life. Then there is Vanaprastha, retiree. And there is Sannyasa, where you are a renunciate. So, questions around sexual orientation, the one around LGBTQ, if you consider these 4 stages of life, they would form, they would fall squarely in the Grihastha. That's where you would park it, because all the other places ask you to retire from worldly affairs or concentrate on studies to look at higher ideals of moksha. So I would say the view of Hinduism is accepting of different practices. So it talks of compassion. The basic idea, tenet, is one of ahimsa, one of non-injury, one of compassion to everyone. So while Hinduism might not directly go ahead and say, yes, this is acceptable or this is not acceptable, it does not say that. What it says is people might have a different orientation. We are accepting of that. It might not promote it as saying this has to be mainstream and so on, but it is accepting of a different orientation.
Okay, just to add on to Anandji's point, I agree with him completely. Uh, we were never marginalized any sort of section of the society. And in particular, how do we know that Hinduism is accepting? Because even in our Puranas, we have characters like Shikhandi, who is a transgender. So we have never taken a standpoint of what is the right orientation, what is not, and what is accepting. But so I think the idea of LGBTQ, we've given it names and it has become an issue today. But I think Hinduism never had an issue with this.
Thank you, Soundharya. I think that will answer many people's assumptions or views on what is accepted and not, and also this fear that may be with some people who want to be a Hindu, but feel that they don't fall into any of these brackets or they are so-called different. So that's really helpful, and I hope it answers the person's question. Now. Moving on to another one. It looks like mantra chanting, and that seems to be a very interesting um, topic for many. So there is a question that I'm going to take live from the audience now. For a hearing impaired person like myself, how can I chant mantra? This is actually a personal experience that someone has had. And are there any other options available to us to benefit from this? Should I go back to Anandji, or it's open to anyone? So basically it is for someone who's hearing impaired, how can I chant mantra effectively? I suppose they feel it as a limitation. That is something we can't experience, but I definitely empathize. Are there any other options available to us to benefit from the mantra chanting?
So there are, I completely recognize the difficulty that this individual is having in terms of, listening to mantras and chanting the mantras. I would say chanting the mantras is only one portion of how we can practice Hinduism. It need not be the only way. So when there are certain difficulties in either hearing a mantra or in chanting a mantra, there are other ways in which one can benefit from it. While you may not be able to hear the mantra, playing a recording of the mantra, for example, has a benefit of creating a safe atmosphere, a serene atmosphere around. Even though you're not able to hear it, the mantra has certain powers of creating a nice spiritual atmosphere around oneself. So I would encourage the person to do that. And again, mantra chanting need not be the only way of practicing Hinduism. There is always seva. You can do seva. So that would be a couple of thoughts I have in terms of how a hearing impaired person might approach mantra chanting and make use of the strength of mantras at the same time.
Thank you, Anandji. That seems to be a very hot topic on reciting
Can I
and
add something
chanting.
on?
Yes, please,
Yeah.
Ravi.
Okay, so in addition to what Anandji said, so mantra chanting, you can listen. The other way is, if you're a hearing impaired person, you can actually, but you're able to read. You're able to read. You can just do it in your mind. That means just you don't have to verbalize it. You don't have to vocalize it, but you can just read it in your mind. That is also fine. So yeah, so that is another possible option in addition to playing it and feeling the benefits of the vibrations. Yeah.
Thank you, Ravi and Anandji. The next one is, in mantra chanting, Hinduism is also about rituals, practices. So this question is one on praying and the rituals, and what should be one's priority in today's life. So the question goes like this. I believe that there is God, and I do my salutations at my home altar. Isn't this enough? Is there a need to go to temple and participate in rituals? Shouldn't my priority be in carrying out my duties and showing love and compassion to fellow human beings? So it's a question on, how should I be praying? Isn't it enough that, I pray at home, or should it be that I should be participating in all the rituals? I have so many duties in today's life. How would I, sort of take this many roles in today's life and Hinduism in that?
Okay, I think it's a lot of questions in one. But yes, it's good. It's a good starting point that that we pray at our home altar because it's very personal and it's a daily connection we have. But let's understand that a temple worship is not something that Hindu leaders have put together so that there is a congregation and people come together. It is from our scriptures. Our scriptures, the Shrutis, the revealed scriptures, which are called the Agamas, talk about temples. So when they talk about gods and god forms, there comes temples, temple worship, what sort of temples have to be built, what stone has to be chosen for carving the deity, and so on. So there's a prescription from the Shastras, there's a pramana, and that's why we are following it. So are temples the same as home altars? There's a difference, because in temples, there is a series of elaborate ceremonies, consecration ceremonies, where an ordinary stone sculpture doesn't immediately become a deity. There's a process, there's elaborate rituals and mantras and consecration process that goes into a temple. So temple is like these energy centers, right? There's radio waves everywhere, but you need a radio antenna to tune in. So similarly, energy is everywhere, God is everywhere, but these are energy centers. And because the energy centers, because there is mantras and there is a lot of science that has gone into consecrating the deity. So a temple, apart from a lot of peripheral benefits, like it's a place of social gathering, it's a place of art and culture and all of that, let's remember that these are energy centers, and there is a difference between a home altar and a temple deity. Now, having said that, when we have these temples, it's a duty, it's a dharma to protect them, to protect the temple worship, to protect the rituals that go with it. So if we are able to contribute to it within our means, you don't have to go beyond your means. Of course, if your means only allow you to take care of your family, that's your first duty by all means. But if you have the means, if you have the ability, if you are able to buy an archana, sponsor a small ritual at your neighborhood temple, then that's your dharma, because you are contributing to this place of worship for your community, for your neighborhood, for the world. So it is a selfless act. You earn punya because of it, you're safeguarding your dharma, and also you're contributing to the continuity of the temple worship. So your priority should be carrying out your duties, but doesn't mean your dharma has to be in conflict. I think a lot of us have this question, right? Like, why should I do this instead of doing that? One does not have to do, you don't have to do one at the cost of another. You can do your duties, you can do your charity, and you can also go and buy a $2 milk packet and do an abhishekam or do an archana at the temple. All of these fall within the framework of dharma. So home altar, very good. But if you can also do a temple worship, why not?
Thank you, Soundharya. Would either of you like to add something? If not, I have a sub question to it while staying on the topic. Anandji, anything from my end?
Just a quick add-on to what Soundharya said, but from a very simpler, very easy to comprehend angle. Soundharya talked a lot about energy centers, how the temple is consecrated to attract energies and to pass on those positive energies to us. I will put it in a slightly different manner and ask you, you're watching an F1 race at home on a TV. Would you watch it on a TV, or if you had a chance to go and be a part of the F1 race and watch it live, would you do that? What is the difference in energy between doing something at home by yourself and being in the place where all of the action is? I think the answer is clear. If I were given a chance, I would probably go to the F1 race and get in the spirit, get in the atmosphere, and take in all of that. It's a similar thing. Like Soundharya said, doing it in the house is great. It needs to be done, and it is recommended by our Shastras that we do it in the house. It is also recommended that we go to these energy centers so that we can attract a lot of those energies in addition to the social benefits.
Thank you, Anandji. Soundharya, I'm coming back to you. So picking on the, going to temple for the abhishekam and all you can do is take a milk packet. So this question here is like, why do we need to give God food, jewelry, deck Shakti and Lakshmi, give nice clothes, expensive things to God when he doesn't need them, he or she doesn't need them. And can't these be better spent on people who need them? I mean, it seems like an understandable thing, right? So how do you explain that?
Okay, firstly, we are not giving them because God wants them. Everything has come from God. So this is like, I'm taking the food that my mom cooked and I'm feeding her. So God has given us all of this, and we are offering a tiny bit of this in the form of rituals. Now let's remember that these rituals are revealed in the Vedas. So there's a reason why we're doing it. There's a specific way in which it is done, and there are benefits to it. So when we give the offerings and clothes and jewelry, it is because that particular homam or ritual is done for a particular benefit. So when we do a Chandi homam in Singapore, for example, there's a benefit that comes with it. So that's why we offer. But personally, when you offer, there's a lot of benefits. You become more selfless, right? When you part with something that's very special to you, it keeps you grounded and with an understanding that everything is God. We got everything from God. And so we're just giving back a tiny portion of what we got from God. So that's a major, it prepares you mentally for a state of detachment from all the materialistic pleasures. And the way in which these prayers are carried out, like what Anandji said, it is in a bigger scale. It is for the benefit of the society. So it's a selfless action as well. And this question, the second part of the question, I think I mentioned this earlier. I think the way we frame it, right, when we say, why are you doing a religious offering when you can better spend it? I think that way of saying, how do we better spend it, it's left to each and every individual. I think a lot of us, okay, let's say your daughter wants to plan a Mother's Day surprise for you. Will I go and ask her, hey, why are you getting an expensive ring for your mom? Why are you getting a cake for your mom? No, right? It's the way she wants to show her love to you. So to question someone, why are you doing a religious offering when it can be put to a better use? Who's to define what is better? right? It is an individual who decides how he balances his dharma, what are his priorities, how he wants to show his love. If I want to buy a beautiful garland to show my bhakti, I think it's my personal choice. It's not to say that, you don't do this. I don't come and tell you why you're getting, the latest iPhone when you can put it to better use. I think it can definitely be put to better use. We don't question, individual wants and desires. But when it comes to religious offerings, because we don't understand that there's a lot of benefit attached to it, be it from a logical perspective, from a spiritual perspective, we sort of undervalue the significance of these offerings. So better use, I will not completely agree to that part of the question.
Okay, great. Got it. Thank you, Soundharya. That's really helpful. We'll go to the next one on a structure. So this one is actually to get a structured system to pray. So is there a need to have a structured system to pray? I mean, the aim is to connect and have a relationship with God. And can't we do it in our own preferred ways? I mean, is there a need for a structured system? Staying on the topic of home altar, you're praying and going to temple and praying and then doing the rituals. So it would be good to understand any one of your feedback on that. Is there a way we follow the prayer process? Why it needs to be structured? Is it structured at all? All of those.
Right.
Thank
So
you.
let me just give my thoughts on this. So to connect and build a relationship with God, it's a personal journey. I think we've all spoken about how it's a personal connection that one develops with God. Now, how to do it, again, with a better understanding, we will be able to understand how that's done. Let me give you an example. I think some of you would have tried baking, right? So when you start baking, or when you're like starting a newbie, you always follow the recipe. If it says half teaspoon of baking soda, you don't go and put 2 teaspoons. You have to follow the half teaspoon, right? You follow the recipe step by step, the ingredients step by step, and you have to do it so that you get your cake baked. Now, when you bake like 20 times, 30 times, you sort of get the hang of it. So you start adjusting the ingredients. You see what best suits your palate, what best suits your oven settings, and so on. So you start, bringing these slight changes because you know the formula. So for a beginner, it's hard for a beginner to come and discover how to connect with God. Forget about even this hard food sciences, even when it's an interpersonal relationship. When you ask a newbie, how do I, date a girl, they'll always say, oh, get her flowers and chocolates. Because, it's this universal rule that flowers and chocolates, girls like it. So they generally give you the suggestion. Now, how the relationship grows and how it evolves at the age of 50 or 60, a husband and wife don't need flowers and chocolates to show their love for each other because it's an evolved stage already. So these things evolve. The way the connection happens will change. But why do we have a structured system? Because we need a starting point. Someone has to tell me what is the ingredient, how many teaspoons of baking soda I need. Someone has to tell me how can I relate to Ganesha. He likes modakam. Okay, let me make modakam on Vinayaka Chaturthi. So I need a starting point. After that, definitely, I feel the relationship will evolve. With His grace, definitely it will evolve.
Thank you, Soundharya. Did either of you want to add something? Okay, so it's at different stages, so to speak, and we'll all get there as we start building the relationship and start experiencing God in the form that we want, and feeling that way as we go along will get us to a different plane, I suppose. But it's a good question. Staying on the topic of prayers and going to temple and rituals and all that. There are some people who would like to prefer following saints. They could do it in addition to going to temples and doing that, but they could also have their following. For example, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Ramana Maharishi, Yogananda. There are many others. These are just to name a few. In fact, we had today a quiz and storytelling competition this afternoon, and we could also see the the guru that was from Tirukkovilur, which is something I learned too. So there are many who follow these saints. So is this because the ideas of the Vedas are too conceptual? I mean, when these gurus themselves said, we didn't ask to be worshipped or we did not want it. So why do you think this is being done by some people? What are your views on that? Please, Raviji.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Our tradition has a history of reverence for the Guru. So it is, are they putting the Guru there in place of God? No. It's about reverence to what the Guru has taught me. It's a from an angle of gratitude to the Guru, what the Guru has taught me. That's one. So that's one reason why sometimes Guru's photos are kept there and people do some pujas and things like that. It's gratitude, number one. Number two, and more importantly, most of the time the Gurus are Gurus who have taught, people who have taught us things, expanded, elaborated cryptic concepts from Shastras and put it in a form that is palatable for people to learn, understand, and assimilate. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is a classic example. Swami Vivekananda is another one. Ramana Maharishi, Yogananda. They are people who brought sublime concepts, put it in they brought it down to the level of the common man. They put it in simple forms, either parables or stories or even simple lectures. They put it in a form such that man can assimilate it, digest it. So this is, and when these concepts and ideas are digested by man sees his life getting better. So there is this gratitude first. And secondly, while man tries to put these ideas into practice, he needs to remember where these ideas came from. They came from this particular person. So by regularly worshipping, adoring such person, I keep on remembering the ideals that this person had transmitted to me. So when we have photograph of Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, when we are worshipping out of gratitude, number one. Number two, we are worshipping so that we will never forget the very ideals that Ramakrishna and Vivekananda shared. Because we are always so prone to forgetting things. We want to remember, we want to walk that path that they walked. So that is the reason why we have photos of these great men. And the second part, is it because the Vedas are too conceptual? No. Vedas were written at a time and place under a certain set of circumstances. There was a need over time for Vedas to be expanded, elaborated, concretized, made into stories. That is why you have the Shruti and the Smriti, the human authored scriptures that were developed later based on the Vedas. Okay, so the human authored scriptures based on the Vedas were developed so that man can easily digest the very sublime concepts of the Vedas. So, is it the Vedas are conceptual? No, the Vedas are not conceptual. Vedas can be cryptic, but this cryptic Vedas have been expanded and put in a form that man can digest today, and the type of scriptures that take care of this task are what we call Smritis. Examples are Ramayana, Mahabharata, Tirukkural, and Puranas, and all of them. So if we study these scriptures, it's as good as studying the Vedas. Not necessary to go and dive into the Vedas per se. Okay. So have I answered the question? Yeah, the one on Vedas and the part about the Gurus. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much, Ravi. While staying on the Guru, the related question is, we do need Gurus to learn mantras, rituals, and meditation, etc. But paying lots of money for learning these from Gurus based on Dharma, is it right? This is a related question. So following the Gurus and learning from them, what would be the panelists and Ravi's view on this?
Linked to the earlier point again, in our tradition, we pay dakshina, what we call as dakshina to the Guru. It's not a fee. It's not like school fees, This is dakshina. Dakshina comes out of gratitude. The gratitude to the Guru for what he has taught me. So in our tradition, the Guru doesn't charge a fee. Guru doesn't say, because I taught you Kathopanishad, it's $50. Because I taught you Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it's extra long, I charge you $100 based on the length, how long the Upanishad is. It doesn't work like that. There is no fees per se. The dakshana comes from the student out of gratitude, out of happiness, and the love and the guru has shown in teaching him and communicating this knowledge to us. So that is where this dakshana comes. In today's society, has this dakshana concept somehow been adulterated, abused, and made into fees? Maybe it may happen, but I'm sharing what is in the Shastras. The Shastras doesn't say that knowledge of Shastra should be taught for a fee. No.
Thank you, Ravi. Anand, did you want to add something?
Yes, just one small thing, to build upon what Raviji just said. Not only did the Guru not charge a fee, in the traditional Gurukula system, where the student was with the teacher for 12 years, the teacher provided the boarding and the lodging for the student. So the teacher spent whatever he or she could get in order to get students and in order to teach the student without charging a fee. The teacher basically paid out of their pocket to take care of the needs of these students. And like Raviji said, what the student gives at the end of that journey of studies is a token of gratitude. It's a Guru Dakshina, it is a token of gratitude. It is not a fees as it seems to have evolved these days. It's more a token of gratitude.
Excellent. Thank you both for that explanation. In the interest of time, I'm also watching the clock, but I think we will have just time to take two more questions. But this has been a really good session going all along. I've come to the penultimate question now, which is very relevant and it follows the theme. I mean, we had one on iconography, we had on Shastras, we actually had on karma and dharma, we had worship, temple rituals, all of these. This one is actually on more relevant to today and related to rituals. So basically, I'm a parent myself, so I'm very interested in this question. Panelists, what would be your view on the role of parents? How has it changed, today compared to previous generation in terms of, passing on Hinduism? What is the role of the parents today? In Hindu families, for example, the responsibility of passing on the traditions and practices seem to be the sole responsibility of the mothers, if I may. So that's why I said it's an interesting question. Can this continue to hold in current times? What are your thoughts? So there are two parts. One is the role of parents as you pass on the traditions and practices, and how is it changed today compared to the previous generation, especially in the globalized world, which we started off. Hindus are living in all parts of the world now. Their access to, practices and things like that may be limited by the way in which they live. But also, does the mother have a heavier role in passing on the practices at home that would carry on to the next generation? Please, who would like to take the question first?
Well, as a parent myself, I'm happy to take the question.
Great.
I think the role of parents, yes, it has changed. And I would say it has become even more important for the parents. The role of parents has become even more important these days. Considering the amount of change that's going on in the world around, one of the first things the first question we talked about was, is the idea of religion even relevant in this globalized world? And we talked about how, given all of the changes, it's important to build personal resilience. It's important to be able to address a lot of changes which are coming at us. And that is related to, again, what the parents' role is in building that. There is a beautiful shloka which talks about how should a parent behave. And it says, Lalayet panchavarshani, dashavarshani tadayete, praptet shodashe varshe, putram mitravadharayet. Meaning, for the first 5 years of a child's life, indulge the child, treat him like a prince or the princess. The next 10 years, from 6 to 15, is when it says tadayet, meaning sikshiyet, provide guidance, provide the structure which is necessary. To Soundharyaji's point, when you are beginning anything, you need structure. When there is a lot of ups and downs at a particular time, you need structure. So think of the youth. In that time is when there's a lot of changes happening, physical, mental. You're transiting from probably a student to working adult. So there's a lot of things that are happening there. So at that point in time, provide the guidance, provide the necessary structure. After 16, become a friend, become a mentor, become a guide. So this is the traditional Hindu approach to parenting. And I would say, this is where we really need to concentrate and say, as parents, what are values, what are techniques of coping, what are information about oneself that we are providing to our children. Typically, we encourage children, as parents, we encourage children, you need to excel in math, you need to excel in language, you need to excel in this, in arts, you need to become a really good piano player, you need to become a really good footballer for those of you who are interested in sports. Very rarely do we say, you need to become a very resilient individual. You need to become aware of yourself. We don't have these conversations. So the importance of a parent in these crucial times is to have these conversations, is to build what today we would call in parlance, in the leadership training that I do, as self-awareness, emotional intelligence, being aware of your emotions, being able to handle your emotions, being able to handle others' emotions, being able to recognize, empathize with others' emotions. These are skills which parents need to give. And the more that they give at a younger age, the greater the impact the child will have in becoming a good person, a good citizen of the country, of the world as a whole. I'll briefly address the question that you had on, are the mothers more involved in it, and so on. I'm actively involved in passing on, everything about our Hindu scriptures to my daughter as much as my wife is involved. So the Hindu view of life is that it is always a joint effort by both the mother and the father. Depending on each person's skill set, there might be certain areas which one person concentrates upon and another person concentrates upon. That's basically division of labor and where your expertise comes in. In fact, I would stretch a little bit more further and say, it is not only the responsibility of the parent, of the father and the mother. The grandparents come into the picture, the uncles come into the picture, the aunties come into the picture. It takes a village to raise a child, if I can put it that way. And everyone needs to be involved in everyone else's development.
Excellent. I think that was a great answer. Not everyone else's holistic development, if I may, because we're talking about not just the arts and chasing the academic dreams and everything, but this is another dimension that builds one's values and character at the heart of it. And the scriptures have a lot of examples to say from that. Excellent. Thank you, Anandji, and your personal experience as a father is even more relevant. Would Soundharya or Raviji have any point of view on these? If not, I would.
So I'll just add on
Yes,
the point
please.
about the importance of being a good role model. I think most of us, right, when we are trying to take children away from screen, but we ourselves are glued to our smartphones. I think role modeling is very important, especially when it comes to religious activities, be it prayers at home or visiting the temple. We have to be good role models for a start. And we may not have all the answers for what we do because our parents never answered, our grandparents never gave us the answers. But we have the responsibility to find the answers and give convincing answers. A lot of times we feel, just sending, even in the session that we had on by the Balagurukulam teachers, Shreya and Lalita, they stressed on how it's not just enough to send children to religious classes, but you don't, practice it yourself. So I think it's very important to be role models. And when it comes to the role, or like what Anandji said, yes, it's both the father and the mother. But somehow in our tradition, the Stri Dharma, we give a lot of importance because the mother is literally shaping the habits of the children. They shape they pave the path. So in fact, in one of the marriage rituals from the Atharva Veda, they talk about how it says, now comes the bride enters your family, and she comes to sow the seeds of intellect. So a bride has such a powerful role to play in the family she goes to, because she's sowing the seeds of intellect of how the children are going to grow up to. So a lot of power is given to women, and with great power comes great responsibility. So I think mothers out there have definitely a good role to play in this.
Excellent. Thank you. So we had a father's view, and I have my mother's view, and I completely agree that, I had to sit with my daughter for Bala Gurukulam lessons, and also whatever I want to make her learn, I first learn or I correct her whenever I have an opportunity. The modeling is very, very important. Okay. I think this is going very well, but as any good thing should come to an end. We have had some very good session for 90 minutes. So we have a closing lined up very shortly. In the interest of time, I'm going to actually go to the last question right now. I would like to assure the viewers that you can always send in questions via the website or any other thing, and we may have an opportunity to address you even after the festival, address all of these after the festival. But given this session, this finale has to come to an end, as all things. We would have this question to. This is a very pertinent question, and which is, does everyone need a guru for Hinduism, and how does one select the right guru for learning Hinduism? It's quite open, and any one of you can chip in. But it is something that people are interested to know. I think we had a little bit on the guru earlier, and Ravi had already touched upon it. But this one is more on how do you select the right guru for Hinduism.
The first question, the first part of the question, does everyone need a guru? The short answer is no. It's not a must. Our tradition doesn't say that every single person needs to have a guru. But what is more important is everybody needs to be learning Hinduism. I think that's a key point. So, and this is probably where the gap exists today in the contemporary Hindu society, because while temples have become places of worship, their role as places of learning, as they used to be in the past, somehow seems to be diminished. So everyone don't need a guru, but everyone needs to learn about Hinduism, continuously be learning. Learning about Hinduism means what? That means learning Dharma, learning the right way of living. And that kind of learning can take place in a number of ways, through access to the Shastras, to studying the Shastras yourself. Or if you find that it's difficult, or for whatever reason it's not possible, then you may find a guru, look for a guru who can share with you this Dharma. So your objective is to be very clear about what you want out of the guru. So then that will answer the second part about how do I go about selecting a guru. Okay, so what do you want out of the guru? So one thing that you can possibly get out of a guru is this knowledge pertaining to Dharma, what we call as how to live as a Hindu, live dharmically as a Hindu. That's one. The other type of knowledge that people commonly seek is about what we call as jnana. And that is the one where we talk about where the person has the goal of seeking moksha. That is a very specialized type of philosophical knowledge that is sought from a guru also. And there too, people can seek a guru to learn this knowledge systematically via Shastric methodology. So here again, a guru is actually quite important. So in the second instance, a guru is more important than the first one. The first one you can study yourself. In the second one, it's harder to get the knowledge yourself, and therefore you need a guru. Okay, so these are the two situations when you need a guru. The question was then, the last part was, how does one select? So to select the right guru, you need to know what you want, okay, and whether your needs are being fulfilled by the guru. Yeah, Anand, you have anything to add on that?
Yes, just a quick thing, to build on Raviji's point about saying, you might not need a guru. So, we talk about learning is always a journey. So, Raviji stressed on the fact that, okay, you don't have a guru, but continue to learn. So how do you want to learn? People learn in different ways. One is, you can just go on trial and error method. If you're comfortable with that, go ahead and learn. Some of us have that preference. So in that case, you become your own guru. You look at your own life experiences, you reflect on your own life experiences, you look at what's going on around you and you learn from that, and that's great. But sometimes as we take this journey, we find that we are lost. We find that it is helpful to have a roadmap. So you can go to the books. The books are like the roadmap, the scriptural texts. So they will provide you some kind of guidance. So they become a form of a guru. So they guide you. Sometimes I'm not so capable of reading a map, and map reading skills are going down these days. We know that. So what I want to do is I want to follow someone. So there's a car going ahead. I see a car and I want to follow that car. So I see someone else going on that path. I follow that path. I see someone else who's gone there, who's achieved what I want to achieve. So I follow them. So that becomes a guru whom you follow. Now, the Shastras do present a couple of qualifications in order to say who is a guru in defining it. It talks of three things. One, it says is should be a Shrotriya. Person should have the knowledge of the scriptures. So like what Raviji said, if you're looking at the ultimate knowledge, philosophical knowledge, if you're looking at the Jnana Marga, then you want someone who has learned that, who has been deeply ingrained in that philosophy. So that is one. The second one is Brahmanishta. So the idea is that the person should not only have textual knowledge of it, but should have first-hand experience of it. So when I have a first-hand experience of it, I will be able to guide you on the road through the valleys and the hills. So that is that. The third thing which is talked about is akamahata. So the guru should not desire to get anything out of this relationship other than providing you with the knowledge. So this again comes back to a discussion of should I pay for this? How much should I pay for this? How much is this? Not? The knowledge is precious. And the guru is one who gives it out of sheer love for you as a student, because you are an interested student. You are interested in it. What you give in gratitude as a Guru Dakshina is a different matter. But from the perspective of Guru, I don't want anything out of this. I merely want to share it with you so that you as an individual can make use of this and develop yourself.
Wonderful. Both your answers were. Soundharya, would you like to add something?
Yeah, sure. But the question, I understand that they have some gurus in mind, so they want to select the right guru, which I think has been ably answered. But again, another question is, how do I find a guru? If I don't have a guru, how do I find one? And I've asked this question to my gurus, and all they've said is, when you're prepared, you'll get your guru. When your mind is prepared, when you're prepared to receive the knowledge, the guru will find you. And if nothing, take God as your guru. There's a beautiful, like Kanda Sashti Kavasam is very popular. There's something called Kanda Guru Kavasam, where every line they will call Kandan as the guru. Kanda Guru, they say that you have to come now and teach me, because that's how much I want to learn. So God is taken as the guru. So if nothing, pray to God so that you find a good guru. That's how you will find a guru. But if you have a good selection of gurus and you want to select one, then we have also the directions for it.
Thank you. I think as someone who experienced myself in this guru journey, I can tell you that I perfectly agree with the seeker and what you look for, because when your mind is rested on, not only that, I feel like as a learner, yes, a lot of things I can learn myself, with my training and everything, but community becomes very important. And I feel with a guru, sometimes you have a good community. When you start to learn from someone, then you realize that he or she has 10 students, 20 students, many. Then you start developing this community where you feed off each other, you learn from each other. Then you start expanding your knowledge of things, and you want to do more. And that's where your ability to also learn more and your gratitude to the guru comes, because through him or her you found more. And that's been my experience. Then I think for any learning experience, a community is a good way to actually engage and learn. which has always been there with Hinduism and from those days when they had the Guru Sishya Parampara and things like that. So that's something has been my experience. If Anandji and Raviji have nothing more to add, I would go ahead and thank everyone. Um, well, it has been really delightful to host this session. I mean, I learned so much from each one of you here, and it's unfortunate that we have to. It's almost 8:30 now. Now, I cannot thank you enough for all your inputs for today's session, the panelists. I thank the audience for your enthusiastic engagement. I mean, with all the questions coming in, you were the best people to make it as lively as possible. And this session cannot be as enriching without the questions that you put forward. We sincerely hope that you found the answers to some of your questions, but we also, if we were not able to take all of yours, I apologize in the interest of time. I take this opportunity again to thank each one of our panelists, Soundharya, Anand, and Raviji. Excellent sharing by all of you. I like to remind the audience and everyone else who may not be watching today that the videos of all of these sessions of the 10-day festival, the 23 events have been put online. You can watch online on Hindu Center's YouTube and YouTube channel, or you can also go to the festival website to find the link. You can watch at your own time. Please be sure that you don't miss them. Now we will move on towards the closing segments of this 10-day festival. It's been extremely a blessed opportunity for myself to be involved in this festival, to be able to involved in this session, learning so much from all of you. I'm going to hand over the microphone now to Dr. Prasad, the President of Hindu Center. I encourage all our viewers to stay on and watch the closing session. We have Swamiji here with us here. Thank you.
Namaste, Namaskaram, and Pranams. A warm welcome to and Pranams to our guest of honor this evening, Swami Samachittananda, President of the Ramakrishna Mission in Singapore, and our special guest, His Excellency Mr. P. Kumaran, the Indian High Commissioner to Singapore. Today, as you all know, is a very auspicious day in the Hindu calendar, being Kartikeya Deepam celebrations on Paurnami Day, when Hindus all over the world will be lighting oil lamps all over their homes, inside and outside. So on this day, we have come to the end of the inaugural Festival of Hinduism. Earlier this afternoon, we had a session on the significance of our Hindu festivals, and we have just concluded the final event, Ask Me Anything on Hinduism, where a panel addressed live questions thrown to them by the audience. Just some background. Initially, this festival was conceived last year as a physical event, something like a fun fair with various booths showcasing the different aspects of Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. But in February this year, the world changed. With the onset of COVID-19 globally, businesses and schools were shut, people couldn't go to work, gather together, and were subject to safe distancing measures. We realized that everyone, young and old, were beginning to become comfortable with remote and online interaction. People worked from home. WFH became a new acronym. So did HBL, or home-based learning. So we decided to move the festival online and spread it over 10 days instead of just 1 to 2 days. We could also have a greater spread of topics to present under the overarching theme of living a Hindu life. The team, led by Sadashiv, put in extraordinary efforts to bring this to fruition. I want to thank the whole team that worked behind the scenes, conducting dry runs and rehearsals to make sure that the technology worked well to bring the events to a mass audience. A few of them put in Herculean efforts amid the busy schedule to make things work, and I am very, very grateful to all of them. I also want to thank our partners, Hindu Endowments Board, Chinmaya Seva Center, Singapore Dakshina Bharata Brahmana Sabha, Singapore Indian Fine Arts Society, the Temple of Fine Arts, Sri Krishna Premi Swamigal Satsangam, Nikam Guruji Yoga Kutir, and DMBG Consultants for readily agreeing to support the festival and organize some events. Of course, they brought with them their own members and supporters for the events. Nothing would be possible without our wonderful presenters, both from within the Hindu Center as well as other individuals. They all did a great job fronting the 23 events over 10 days. All of them are professionals in their own fields of expertise, but they all decided to contribute to this festival. Their insightful presentations ranged across many topics, such as the key tenets of Hinduism, the worldview and rituals of Hinduism, Ramayana and the Gita, God, worship, chants, meditation and mindfulness, yoga, womanhood, numerology, astrology, children, temples, deities, Ayurveda, vegetarianism, astrology, temple architecture, Vastu Shastra, music and dance, and our festivals, as well as a tour of Hindu holy places. In short, a fascinating and most informative collection of talks. All of these presentations are available, as Uma just mentioned, for replay at the Hindu Center YouTube channel and Facebook page. But all of this would be in vain without an audience. So I want to thank our online audience who have stretched to beyond the shores of Singapore. I also want to place on record our deep appreciation to Mr. Edwin Tong, Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, and Second Minister for Law, Mr. R. Jayachandran, Chairman of HEB, Swami Samachittananda, President of Ramakrishna Mission, and His Excellency Mr. P. Kumaran, High Commissioner of India to Singapore, for their messages of support and endorsement. It really means a great deal to us at the Hindu Center. We will take the learning points to heart and present an even better festival in the coming years, perhaps a hybrid festival. It has been a deep learning experience for us doing it for the first time. Now it is my great pleasure to invite His Excellency Mr. P. Kumaran, the Indian High Commissioner, to say a few words.
Oh, is my audio clear, please, Dr. Varaprasad?
Yes, coming through.
Good evening, everyone. Guest of honor, Swami Samachittananda, President Ramakrishna Mission, Bangalore. Sorry, Singapore. My apologies. Dr. N. Varaprasad, President, Hindu Center. Mr. Krishna Sadashiv, Vice President, Hindu Center. Other distinguished guests and participants at today's event. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of the closing ceremony of this unique event organized by the Hindu Center, which has made commendable efforts over the years in line with its three pillars of knowledge, devotion, and service to society. My greetings to the vibrant Hindu community in Singapore, although they constitute only a small segment of the total population. I'm happy that, despite this constraint, the Hindu community in Singapore is a thriving community with a high degree of visibility, with more than 25 temples and numerous organizations involved in community service and contributing vibrance and color to the cultural and spiritual life of Singapore. The Hindu Endowments Board and Hindu Advisory Board, appointed by the Government of Singapore, have helped serve as an effective link between the Hindu community and the government. This year has indeed witnessed a unique format for the Festival of Hinduism, a 10-day online event with 23 presentations by a number of distinguished scholars and panelists under the theme Living the Hindu Life. It is an innovative way to organize the event, taking into account the challenging circumstances created by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is impressive that the online festival has managed to cover such a wide canvas, ranging from the main tenets of Hinduism, the important Hindu scriptures, explanations on Hindu iconography, prayers, yoga, Vastu Sastra, temple etiquette, religiously inspired music and dance, and much more. I must confess that I haven't seen anything like this in any of my previous postings. I commend the Hindu Center for putting together such an impressive event. Another important aspect is the strength of the interfaith movement in Singapore, both at the top of the religious hierarchy represented by the interreligious organization, as well as on the ground through the interracial and religious community circles. These serve to maintain trust and awareness among the different religious groups. I'm happy that the Hindu Center has taken active part in these activities, helping advance the cause of religious harmony and mutual understanding between the various communities in Singapore. Hinduism, often referred to as the Sanatana Dharma or the eternal religion, has always been a very open, diverse, and tolerant religion. It is indeed a timeless faith that encompasses a wide range of philosophies, at once ancient and modern, hosting texts, belief systems, and schools of thought that do not necessarily all agree with each other, effectively leaving it up to the individual to study, explore, meditate, and make his or her own connections with the divine based on the validity of their individual experiences. Hinduism is thus a faith that allows each believer to stretch his or her imagination to a personal notion of divinity and to pursue their quest for the eternal through essentially three types of activity. Jnana, the quest for knowledge; bhakti, or devotion, expressed through prayer, fasting, temple rituals, meditation, etc., and karma, or action in fulfillment of dharma. To quote the words of Swami Vivekananda at the Chicago Parliament of World Religions in 1893, "I'm proud to belong to a religion which has taught both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I'm hopeful that the various themes addressed under this festival would have contributed in some way to the continuous efforts being made to promote communal harmony in Singapore. We should continue to make efforts to organize such events in the future, given the rising misunderstandings between communities in different parts of the world." I once again thank the Hindu Center team for inviting me this evening and also commend them for their excellent efforts. Namaskar.
Thank you, Excellency, for your very kind words. Every year for the past few years, we have been coming to the High Commission to tie Rakhi to all the staff and High Commissioner there. Unfortunately, this year we were not able to do that due to restrictions placed on gatherings. But I hope that things will be better next year and we will be able to visit the High Commission on Raksha Bandhan to Rakhi to all the staff. So this is one of our traditions that we have been carrying out. So thank you very much for your kind words.
Thank you. I regret that it was not possible this year, but I look forward to having this done surely next year and to personally participate in it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I would now like to invite Swamiji to give his closing address. Swamiji, please.
His Excellency, the High Commissioner of India to Singapore, Dr. Varaprasad, and the team of Hindu Center. It's really very heartening to see the efforts put organizing all the programs online and so many people participating and really benefiting for the varieties of program, not only religious, but all that which are pertaining to Indian culture, like Ayurveda and yoga and many other sides of it. I was thinking today that when you say the festival we all know is known as Utsava or Utsavam. The very meaning of Utsavam is this. Ut is to take out. Savam or Sava is the grief or the sorrow, etc., or ignorance in a larger meaning of the term. So that what we do on a regular basis, on everyday basis, which is called Nitya Karma, but there are some which we don't do every day. We do only sometimes. That's called the celebrations. You may have 12, 15, 20 celebrations. Hinduism is a very unique way of life. Ekadashi comes 2 times in a month. That itself is a festival for many. That's a day for the special penance and special spiritual practices for many, considering that is a holy day. Then you have an Amavasya, the no moon day, and a Purnima, full moon day. All these are not everyday affairs. You don't have this thing 365 days. But this intermittently, these programs come and we do have celebrations. So Utsavam is combined or individual effort to come out of the grief. Utsavam always is associated with joy, a kind of celebration. Joy, for children, it could be wearing nice clothes and eating food. But the more we become mature, our happiness becomes more finer. Our happiness becomes more refined. So we start getting happiness in something which is more spiritual, which is more all-pervading, which is more inner. So these are the ideas behind having the Utsavam. It is really a good thing to see, as His Excellency told, that these practices of having a Hindu festival, there is no special day. It is a gap of time which is suitable to all. And COVID-19 is not able to remove or eradicate the enthusiasm of the volunteers and participants. That is something very, very commendable. And I, from my bottom of my heart, I really thank all of you who are responsible to organize the whole program. Thank you for that. My pleasure. Should I say the closing prayer?
Thank you, Swamiji. Yes, please. May I invite you to say the closing prayers so that we can close the 10-day Festival of Hinduism. Thank you.
Sure. In spiritual side, or looking from spiritual perspective, a Hindu always wants to pray for everyone, irrespective of religion, irrespective of sex, irrespective of gender, anything. So we'll go for this universal prayer. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May there be well-being in all. May there be peace in all. May there be fulfillment in all. May there be auspiciousness in all. May all be happy. May all be without diseases. May all see what is auspicious. May no one suffer. Om peace, peace, peace. Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Pranam Swamiji, thank you so much for being here. I apologize that we ran a little bit
It's okay.
out of time, but I hope
It's
you're
okay.
fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being a wonderful audience during these 10 days. And as mentioned before, you can always go back and revisit all the sessions once again, all those that you missed, as well as those that you attended on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. And keep in touch with Hindu Center. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.